everybody, welcome, 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 welcome to Hey Sister Girl. My name is Robyn Herron and I am your carnivorous grandma, and we are back for another Monday night Hey Sister Girl show. So, um, I want to welcome you and invite you guys to let me know where you're watching from down in the chat. If this is your first time here, let me know by dropping first time in the chat. And also, we're here tonight because last week we started a conversation that I think is one of the most important conversations that we have ever had on this show. We asked the simple question, why in the heck would anybody start carnivore? And why would you consider trying it? So we didn't really spend that hour arguing about, whether you should eat meat, whether you should eat vegetables, or talking about your cholesterol. Instead, we did something different. And that was that we used a problem-solving tool that I often use in my work called the 5 Whys, which is a root cause analysis tool to ask a much deeper question. And that is, why are so many people getting sick? Because if we don't understand the problem, we never really can understand why people are looking for different solutions, right? So if you have missed last week's episode, I just want to encourage you to go back and listen to it, go back and watch it. And we're going to build on that foundation tonight, because last week we spent time understanding the problem, but tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the evidence. Like, what is the real science showing? And so I want to ask you a question before we get started, whether you're a carnivore or not a carnivore. Maybe you're keto, maybe you're ketovore, maybe you've never even tried a ketogenic way of eating before, or maybe you've never even heard of carnivore and you're like, what in the heck is that? I'm just asking us all, including myself, to leave our opinions at the door tonight. How easy is that to do? It's a little challenging, but yeah, let's just take our opinions off the table for tonight. Because I'm going to tell you that if you are out here watching these YouTube videos and listening to different people talking about eating and nutrition, it's a big bone of contention, right? It's a bone of contention. Everybody's arguing about what we should be eating, right? Maybe some of us thinks that we should be vegan and that vegan is the top of the line. Some of us think that we should be a vegetarian, and that vegetarian is the end all be all. And like me, I believe in carnivore because it's been a game changer for me. So I'm just asking us to just open our minds up just a little bit tonight. And if you hear something that you disagree with, that's okay, because a healthy disagreement can be good. And we're not beginning our conversation tonight with the conclusion. We're just asking better questions. We're asking more questions and being more curious about what's going on, right? So we usually decide what we believe, and then we spend the whole conversation defending it, which is what oftentimes I will do because I love carnivore and I think it's amazing, right? So I'll oftentimes spend my time defending my carnivore way of eating, but we're not going to do that tonight. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about let the evidence lead the conversation, and if the evidence challenges something that I believe, I'm going to be willing to at least hear it out. It might change my mind. It might not change my mind, but at least I'm going to be willing to hear it out, right? So, so let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about what evidence-based really means, because this is something that we hear often, that they say they're evidence-based. And I always think about this guy, Ansel Keys, and the reason why our food pyramid is in the shape that it is in and has been for the last 50, 60 years is because they had evidence based that was proving that fat causes heart attacks. It was a heart health hypothesis that they proved out with some by cherry picking some data, right? So evidence-based, what does it really, really mean? It doesn't really mean like, I love my YouTube doctors, but it doesn't mean that I'm just looking at one particular person who's supporting my position. Because think about this. Dr. Berry, he's an advocate for ketovore, and carnivore. And Dr. Chafee, he's like, plants are trying to kill you. I'm more on the plants are trying to kill you side because I think that plants really are trying to kill me. But you know what I'm saying? There's going to be somebody who's going to be there to support your position. We don't just read one headline. The evidence base really means that we're looking at the totality of the evidence and asking how strong is the research? This is a key element. How many studies support the idea? And what kind of studies are there? Can they show cause and effect? Or only do they just show association? It's an important distinction because not all evidence carries the same weight. So I want to have a look at the evidence pyramid tonight. And I know it's going to look crazy because I didn't have time to throw it into a thumbnail view. But let me bring it up and bring up what this evidence pyramid looks like. See if I can make it a little better. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, there we go. This is the evidence pyramid. So just think about this. At the bottom, we have our personal opinions. We have our anecdotes, individual experiences. And then we have, these are really valuable stories because we know that it is these stories that really matter and are really changing the way things are with our health trajectory, is that people are really listening to individual stories and hearing how amazing how they can change their lives with food, right? Okay, so those are really valuable. And they do help the researchers to ask better questions. Then we have our observational studies. This means like they sent out a survey and said, over the course of a year, how many times did you eat bacon? How many times did you have orange juice? It's an observational study, right? So they track people's patterns, and those studies can be helpful, but they don't prove anything. And then so let me give you an example. Like, and this is something that is often talked about, is that people who eat more hamburgers have more heart disease. Yeah. So is it the hamburger meat that's causing the problem? Or is it the French fries and the shake and the soda that you had along with the hamburger that's actually causing the problem, right? So maybe you're still a smoker. That could be a problem as well. So maybe you're still not getting good sleep like me, and that could be causing a problem. But observational studies can't answer those questions because it's observational. They identify relationships. When you go up the pyramid a little bit more, you got your randomized control trials, and which are much stronger because researchers control variables. So you don't, let me give you an example of that. And that is where, they put a group of people in a certain place for a certain amount of time and do the same thing with them, right? So, and then we have systematic reviews and meta-analysis that, evaluate the high quality studies together. So those kinds of studies provide the most strong evidence. And I'm telling you this because I want you to become a better consumer of health information. I want you to think about the times that you see a magazine article that says, studies show that red meat causes cancer. Right? What is the study? What was the study? What kind of study was it? What is the science that was behind that study? So we need to be really asking those questions and thinking in terms of, what kind of study was it that they did to come up with these conclusions that they're making? So what kind of science was it? Because science continues to evolve. And one thing about science is that science, it's not uh, what I want to say, it's humble. It's not afraid to say, we don't know yet. We're still figuring this out, right? One of the greatest things, strengths about it is that we just don't know yet. We're still studying this. So, real scientists are not trying to prove themselves right, which was the problem with Ansel Keys, was that instead of letting the science take him where it would, he had drawn a conclusion and said, had this, hypothesis, and then cherry picked the information for the study to align with what his goals were, which were to get us to stop eating fat and stop eating a lot of meat, right? So let the science take you where it will. We're trying to discover the truth. And sometimes that means that we're confirming old ideas. And I think that's where we are right now in our world today, is we're confirming a lot of really old ideas that we have literally forgotten over the last 100 years, and then sometimes the ideas needs to be changed, right? So we think about all the things that medicine has changed over the years. Think about this one in particular, that doctors once believed that stomach ulcers were caused primarily by stress. And then over time, researchers discovered that many ulcers were actually caused by a bacterial infection, and it changed the treatment. That science changed that treatment completely. And so science is willing to learn and change. And so that is what we want to consider tonight. And a lot of really great studies are coming out right now. So, watch for those and see what kind of studies they are. Come back and let me know what you found out. So, what we know is that we're still learning. And so I want to separate our discussion into three categories tonight. First of all, what do we know with a high degree of confidence? Areas where there have been multiple high quality studies that point in the same direction. And then the second part is what we think is true based on good but still developing evidence. And carnivore sits squarely within this realm. I just want to put that out there tonight, that carnivore and ketogenic diets are squarely within the realm of they're doing more studies. They're starting to do more studies and see what it actually does. And so it's very promising. And then there are areas where we still just don't know yet. Somebody doesn't want to go to school, so I'm sorry, you're gonna go to school tonight if you're gonna stay over here, because we're talking about these studies, right? So again, we're throwing our sort of dogma out the door and our preconceived notions. And I'm going to say that if the evidence is strong, then let's just talk about the fact that it's strong. If it's mixed, we'll say it's mixed. And, I'm not really trying to convince you to become a carnivore, although I think carnivore is amazing. Hey, Charlie. Hey, how you doing? And I also see Galen out here. Hey, Galen. And I see Haywood. Who cares? Well, I do. And that's why I'm here talking about it tonight. And then Diesel wants it. Says, I want to go to school. I don't want to go to school. That's all right. I get it. So when you hear health advice, who do you trust? Who are you looking to get your health advice? Is it your doctor? Do you look for the research? Are you using YouTube University, which so many of us are doing? Are you looking to your family or your friends? Drop a comment down in the chat and let me know, who is it that you trust with health information? Is it the American Cancer Society? Is it the American Diabetes Association? Is it any of these places that you trust with your health information? So let me know. Drop a comment down there. This is a good question because all of us are influenced by someone, and they're telling you something and you believe it. And the thing is that what my hope is that you're going to become more curious and ask more questions, ask better questions when it comes to your own health. That's my goal over here. And so, and then are the people that you're talking to just reinforcing what you already believe? Are they challenging your ideas at all? Okay, so let's start where we think the evidence is the strongest. What does the science already know? And one of the things that I want to say, and we talk about this all the time on Hey Sister Girl, is that there's a huge, huge problem with ultra processed foods, right? So you may be eating a standard American diet, which is high in ultra processed foods. Or you may be eating even a vegetarian or vegan diet that's high in ultra processed foods. You might carnivore not so much because it's like just meat. But yeah, ultra processed foods seem to be a huge problem. So the science is already aware of this, right? It supports the fact that there's a huge problem with ultra processed foods. So I want you to think about your average grocery store when you go in. The center aisles are filled with foods that come in boxes, bags, and packages, and with ingredient lists as long as your arm. And they're designed to be inexpensive, convenient, and extremely, extremely tasty. Last week, I think we talked about the bliss point. We talk about it often over here because those foods are designed. I call them foods, but I want to put quotes around them because it's really not food. It is products that are designed to be incredibly, incredibly tasty. And, so many of us were or are eating those foods every single day. I'm thinking about these grandkids over here, like, my baby is crying 24/7, and I think she's crying because she's just having too much sugar. Yeah. So, researchers have consistently found that diets high in ultra processed foods are associated with obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and other chronic illnesses. So, one of the most fascinating studies was conducted by Dr. Kevin Hall at the National Institutes of Health. He brought people into a metabolic ward where everything they ate was carefully controlled. The participants ate ultra-processed diet for 2 weeks, and then they ate a minimally processed diet for 2 weeks. Both basically the same macros, the same amounts of calories, fat, sugar, and carbs. And what they found was that when people ate ultra processed foods, they naturally consumed 500 more calories per day without even realizing it, right? So I want you to think about that because the ultra processed food makes you hungrier. Well, I don't know if it's hungrier, your mouth hungry. You want to eat some more of it because it tastes so good, right? So during this study, nobody said how much they were supposed to eat. They just naturally ate more when they ate ultra processed foods. So the food was encouraging them to eat more. So Charlie's saying, I trust my own lived experiences and my lab results on carnivore more than any meta-analysis. Absolutely. Me too. Me too. All right. So what about protein? One of the most consistent findings in nutrition science is that protein is the most satisfying macronutrient. Let me just take a step back. What I'm saying is you need to eliminate ultra-processed food. That's what I'm saying. Eliminate it. Okay. All right. So protein is satiating. It helps us to feel full. It helps to preserve muscle while you're losing weight, and it naturally reduces hunger. So you'll see, and you will find that many people who are on carnivore ways of eating, keto ways of eating, just say I'm naturally less hungry. I'm easier able to fast, like just even intermittent fasting. I can go longer before I have to break my fast, those kinds of things. I forgot to eat lunch even. And it's not because we're literally forcing ourselves to fast, but we're just satisfied because we're eating a good amount of protein. And, that's just really just the way our physiology works. So then let's briefly touch on blood sugar. Thank you, Lily. She says I look really healthy. Thank you so much. Another area where the evidence is really strong is where people reduce refined carbohydrates, especially people with insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes. They often experience improvements in blood sugar control, right? So, the research has consistently and repeatedly shown improvements in A1C and fasting glucose and fasting insulin over time, triglycerides, HDL, your lipid panel, and in many cases reduced or eliminated the need for insulin in type 2 diabetics. And if you are watching YouTube streets, you can see this happening over and over and over again. This anecdotal evidence, individual N equals one experiments of people who are eliminating their type 2 diabetes with a carnivore way of eating. So people who have metabolic disease or, autoimmune disease oftentimes will choose to explore a very low carbohydrate approach. And I will say that for me, even I went keto to eliminate my hypertension. And that was something that was, I don't know, I had probably been watching a lot of YouTube University and discovered that keto could help with high blood pressure. And so I eliminated hypertension with keto. So Charlie's saying, I've noticed that steak and burgers satisfy me more than processed meats like beef sticks and hot dogs. Absolutely, 100%. The real whole one ingredient, single ingredient meat, especially beef, really is very, very satiating. So another thing that the research is showing is that this myth that we can lose weight with just willpower or that it's just about willpower. So we were told just eat less and move more. Yeah, it really is not that simple because willpower is, I mean, so many of us fail with that, right? So many of us fall and fail. So our science has literally taught us that our appetite is influenced by hormones, sleep, stress, food quality, protein intake, reward pathways in the brain, and yes, personal responsibility. I mean, yeah, we do have personal responsibility for ourselves. But it's the biology that makes the most of the difference, right? So when we were over here blaming people for being fat and saying you just eat too much, there is more to the story here. And then we can stop blaming people and start helping people when we understand that it's the biology. It is hormones that really regulate our hunger and satiation signals, right? And then, we think about insulin. It is it's a growth hormone. It helps the body to store fat. So, we have high insulin all the time. It's hugely problematic. So, we don't want to be blaming people. We want to just, help people understand what the real truth of the matter is. And if you can change um, those hormonal signals, then you can have a better outcome. So, the big takeaway is that everything that we have discussed tonight has strong scientific support. And none of it requires you to believe that carnivore is the perfect diet. I think the only way you can discover that carnivore is the perfect diet is that you try it. But it does help explain why so many people experience improvements when they move away from ultra processed foods, increase their protein, and improve their metabolic health. So it's an important thing to understand because we're building a case based on the scientific evidence. So Charlie's saying that GLP-1s provide good evidence that hormones largely control hunger and appetite. Absolutely. The GLP-1s are a great test case for that, but they're also a great test case for some other stuff that people don't want. That's my opinion. So let me hear from you guys. Who else is in the chat? What has been the biggest change you made in your eating over the last few years? Did you go carnivore? Did you give up sugar? Did you cut back on your processed food? Maybe you stopped drinking orange juice. I hope you stopped drinking orange juice because that is like a sugar bomb. Maybe you stopped eating potatoes. I know I stopped eating potatoes a long, long time ago when I realized that they're a sugar bomb. So go ahead and drop it in the chat and let me know what your experience was when you changed your way of eating. So let's talk a little bit about where the science is a little bit more nuanced. And so we're going to talk a little bit about where the evidence is still emerging. Well, they're still doing studies, and we need to kind of give them some time to do them, right? So the science is super exciting in these areas, but we don't have all the answers yet from a science-based perspective, though we have hundreds and thousands of anecdotal stories. If you want to watch some of them, you can go on Dave Mack's channel. He's got like 2,000 stories, anecdotal stories, right? So yeah, we don't have all the answers yet, and it's okay to say that. One area is in the area of autoimmune disease. And that's one of the common questions that I get people asking me is, can carnivore help with autoimmune disease? And the answer is that it might, and oftentimes it does help with autoimmune disease because there's thousands of people who report significant improvements after removing many foods and eating a purely animal-based diet. So yes, I think it can help. And there are published case reports and observational studies and a whole bunch of, oh yeah, that's awesome, Charlie. Compelling personal stories, including my own, which I, talk about all the time. But in this case, we do need those large randomized clinical trials before we can before I will say, I think that us carnivores will say confidently that we know that it does, but before the medical establishment will say it, we need more clinical trials, right? And then they'll be able to confidently say, and we're starting to see this happening actually. And so just because the medical establishment has not come on board yet does not mean that you shouldn't try it, not at all. It means that we can just be honest about what they understand and what they don't know, what we know, right? Another area is mental health. If you're really interested in mental health, you can read a book by Dr. Georgia Ede, and it's called Change Your Diet, Change Your Mind. So, but this area is also very fascinating and super exciting because people are really reporting many, many improvements in health. Anxiety, depression, hey y'all, hey friends. Yeah, brain fog, mood, mine was anxiety. I mean, I literally thought I was going to be trapped inside my house. Like, I pretty much could drive up to Meyer, which is like a mile down the road, and that pretty much is it. Even focus, being able to focus better. And so, the researchers are exploring the reasons why this would be happening, and perhaps it has to do with more stable blood sugar and reduced inflammation. Definitely, we know that sugar causes high sugar, high carbohydrate causes inflammation all over the body, including in your brain, right? They call brain inflammation and type 3 diabetes, which is like dementia and Alzheimer's disease. So inflammation in the brain is definitely challenging, right? So, when we go to a low sugar or eliminated sugar way of eating, that how our brain uses energy may change. But again, before the medical establishment is going to accept it, it really is going to take more evidence. But we see it. We literally see it over here as we watch all these stories of people, changing their minds, changing their brains through a carnivore way of eating. We got a couple of comments in the chat. It says, Carnivore has helped my husband stay off Crohn's disease medications and maintain remission. That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. And then Cheryl is saying, I started converting from SAD to carnivore in January 2025. I've reversed my diabetes. Awesome. And lost 80 pounds. Congratulations, Cheryl. Congratulations. The biggest change has been no more cravings for sugar and carbs. 100%. Yeah, we thought that, I mean, literally these ultra processed foods and sugars were hijacking our brain and saying, you need me, you need me. And so congratulations to you. And then Charlie said, my doc has recommended carnivore to others if they're interested in that direction based on what he's witnessed of me from several years ago to present day. That is absolutely incredible. That's perfection. That's exactly what we want. Hey, T. Lewis, so glad you're here. All right. So the next thing is around the gut microbiome. And I know that there's a lot of conversation going on about the gut microbiome these days. And, what about gut bacteria? There's a new study that recently came out, a couple of new studies that recently came out talking about, how the gut microbiome changes when you go to a meat-based way of eating and how they used to think that this biodiversity in the gut microbiome was really important. And they're discovering that there may be more than one way to skin a cat. Can I say that? Yeah, there may be more than one way, right? So we're still learning in this area. And we were always literally told that more diversity is always better. And researchers are learning that it might not just be about diversity, but about function. What is happening? What are those organisms doing inside the gut? And a healthy microbiome is one that supports a healthy person. And so that is one thing that we need to consider. So we're still trying to understand what that looks like on different dietary patterns. And I think this is a key thing that we need to understand is that when you change your dietary pattern, a lot of things change. I think about my most recent labs, and if you have not watched that show, you can check it out where Nurse Laura and I actually reviewed my labs. And I am one of the people who has longer living red blood cells. And so my A1C went up a little bit, but my fasting insulin was like a 2. So so basically, I'm really much more healthy than I was in the past. So everything kind of changes when you change your eating pattern, including the gut microbiome. So that's something that I expect that there will be a lot of studies about this, and we're going to learn a lot over the next several years on that. A. Mason, hi. So glad you're here. I enjoyed watching you with Juliet and John yesterday. Thanks again. What do you consider the greatest benefit of carnivore for you? Oh my goodness. Well, can I just name one? That is really challenging. Okay, if I have to name my top one, I'm going to have to say it's the reduction in anxiety, racing thoughts, food obsession. I feel like I had undiagnosed mental illness and I just really thought that that was a normal state of being for myself. And so, um, when I went carnivore and after about 90 days, I've experienced this carnivore zen that everybody talks about and how you just get this overall sense of well-being. Um, well-being. Yes, that has to be the top. The second has to be my facial eczema, which if you haven't seen it, maybe I'll just see if I have a picture of it for you guys and show what that looks like. Yeah, this is my before and after. I don't have a recent one on here, but basically I had this facial eczema that was really, really challenging. Two black eyes and this dark circle around my mouth. That was something that was really challenging for me. And I wore a lot of makeup to cover it up. So that's got to be number two. But I have a whole list of things that changed for me when I went carnivore. And so thank you, A. Mason. Glad that you're here tonight. The next one is food addiction. So this is something that, as a coach and even as my own personal self dealing with food addiction, um, we think that it is a discipline problem, right? We feel trapped because we're trapped in that cycle of cravings, as I was just talking about, that complete food obsession. And I mean, I was literally thinking about food 24/7. I wanted to tell you what I ate and I wanted to see what you ate. So send me a picture of it. And I mean, I still do some of that because of the work that I do here in the space. But I'm not obsessed with it, right? So, some researchers believe that highly processed foods can activate your brain's reward system in ways that make stopping very difficult. What we're talking about is food addiction. Um, and so food addiction, like any other addiction, right? Where you can't just have one. I just can't have just one cookie. If I'm gonna eat some Girl Scout cookies, those Thin Mints in particular, I'm gonna eat at least a half a sleeve of those things. It's the food is designed that way to make it highly palatable and more addictive. And if you are a person who suffers with food addiction, you're not alone, that's for sure. So after eliminating sugar and ultra processed foods, so many people, I mean, person after person after person, just gives that testimonial that they have gotten rid of their food addiction, their racing thoughts around food and food cravings. And so, that's a really, really big deal. And the researchers are actually actively studying that. And so, hopefully, we're going to see some more science coming out about that. So, when thousands of people, I mean, you just look at Dave Mack's channel. He's like an interviewing machine. When thousands of people independently report similar improvements, I started to pay attention to that because I mean, it can only be anecdotal for so long, right? When so many people report the same thing. It tells me that this question deserves some serious scientific investigation, that they need to get some serious, studies going and understand why this way of eating is so profoundly impactful in so many ways. So, that evidence will grow over time. And as we continue to tell our stories online, then, that is something that that it will become part of the body of evidence for this way of eating. All right. Charlie says big tobacco bought a lot of snack companies. Yes, they did over a few decades ago and injected their addiction cravings know-how into those products. Yes, that is absolutely the case. We have known for over 100 years that sugar is a problem, but yet it's proliferated throughout everything. I mean, everything. All your low-fat foods are, they put sugar to make it taste like something because fat tastes good and it's satiating, and the sugar. So sugar is proliferated, and look at what has happened to our society from a health perspective. Like so many people are sick. So yes, big tobacco, they know what they're doing. They are definitely experts at creating addiction. And so they just switched the game and switched over to the food. Yes, Charlie, you should go over and check out Dave's channel again because he's definitely got a ton of interviews. And you need to go over there and just let him talk to you one more good time. All right, so let me hear from you guys. If you tried carnivore, what was the first improvement that you noticed? Let me see. What was my first improvement? Um, Man, everything changed so fast. I can't even remember. My first improvement was probably those racing thoughts around food started to go away. Um, I was coming from a sort of a metabolically flexible point of view because I had been keto for so long. Keto and Cheeto because I couldn't stay on it because I kept cheating. But anyway, my body had already learned how to burn fat for fuel. So that was one benefit that I didn't have to go through the whole transition of my body learning to burn fat for fuel. But yeah, I think the first one that I noticed was like I just started to feel better all over my head, my brain. All right. Carnivore Zen. It's amazing. Yeah, so less food thoughts and carnivore Zen. Yes, absolutely. Did anybody experience more energy? Um, I think one of the things I thought early on was like, oh, I don't need as much sleep. But now that I'm not getting as much sleep, I'm like, I need more sleep. So, but yeah, some people say that they experience a burst of energy. I don't really think I saw that kind of burst of energy that a lot of people talk about. Some people talk about less pain, their inflammation really reducing very, very fast. And so lots of great benefits, absolutely. So we've talked about what the science supports, and we talked about where the science is still growing. So let's talk about the questions that everybody asks. They want to know, what about fiber, cholesterol, you know, red meat? What about heart disease? How about my kidneys? Am I going to be able to go to the bathroom? All of these questions. Um, and one that a lot of people ask is like, where do you get your vitamins from? So let's separate facts from fear tonight. Yeah. What about fiber? Do you need fiber? That's probably one of the questions that many people think about before they try carnivore. And then they try carnivore and they realize, oh, heck no, I don't need fiber. My body works exactly as it should, and I have not had fiber in over 3 years. So people will ask, where do you get your fiber? And I say, I don't take fiber. I don't have any fiber. I think what happens with fiber is that fiber is a bulky agent. It's indigestible, so it goes into the bowel and it stretches the bowel, which gives you that feeling of needing to go to the bathroom, right? But, you don't need it. You really don't need it. I'm just going to leave it at that. There is no disease caused by a deficiency of fiber, not even one. So most of us who transition to carnivore experience less bloating, less gas, if you get any gas at all, and more, elimination of symptoms of IBS, whether it be constipation or diarrhea. And when you reduce that fiber, it really does help, right? So, yeah, I don't think you need fiber. That's what I'm going to say about that. How about my cholesterol? What's going to happen to my cholesterol if I eat all this meat? A lot of people are concerned about cholesterol, and I think there's more research coming out to say that we just have some wrong ideas about cholesterol. So, some people do see a very strong increase in their LDL cholesterol on a carnivore diet. I'm thinking about my friend Christy at Meeting Wellness. She's what they call a lean mass hyper-responder, and her cholesterol shot through the roof when she went carnivore. So yes, that does happen. But you can't take that number in isolation. Just like you can't take any of the numbers, even your weight on the scale in isolation, right? It's not just one number, right? It's a number of factors. So we want to look at the whole picture. So we want to look at all of the things in context. There may be additional labs that you want to have drawn on your lipid panel if you're a lean mass hyperresponder. You might want to look at some of the information that's out here about people who have a strong increase in cholesterol when they go carnivore. And I know that I remember talking to her about this, and she was a little bit freaked out about it at first, but then realized, okay, so this is normal for some people who go on carnivore. And so look at your A1C, fasting insulin. You want to look at the particle size of those LDL particles, and look at your HDL, your triglycerides and HDL ratio. What's your blood pressure? What's your waist circumference? How much inflammation do you have? So all these things need to combine together to get you a real picture about what's going on with your body, not just one number, not just your LDL number alone in isolation. So that's just something that you need to think about. But you need to get your provider that you're working with, a provider that will look at you as a whole person and not just one single lab number. I was just talking on Coach's Corner on Saturday night with Gerard, and he was saying that he had gone to a doctor one time. That first time, they wanted to send him out with 3 medicines. They didn't even know him. And he was like, that is crazy. Who does that? So you want to work with a provider that can help you assess and not just look at just one single number. Charlie said, on carnivore, it feels like I've won an energy lottery that pays daily dividends, and I've not had any caffeine in 3 years. Congratulations, Charlie. You're doing good on that caffeine thing. You are really doing good on that. Okay. Another question that people have is red meat dangerous? Is red meat dangerous? Because yes, we have been taught, we've been hearing that red meat is carcinogenic. Yeah, we've been hearing that. But that truth is more complicated. And again, we talked about those different types of studies, observational studies, with which can identify associations, but not prove cause and effect. So much of that concern come from, I'm going to just say it, bad science. It's just not good science, right? So eating a grilled steak with eggs is very different from eating a fast food meal with fries, a sugary drink, and a dessert. Did y'all hear that they came back with the fried apple pie? I saw this on my TikTok. McDonald's came back with the fried apple pie. Now, can you imagine? It's a fried apple pie fried in seed oil. Oh, that sounds just horrible to me. Anyway, a dietary pattern where you're eating beef and eggs, or maybe even beef, bacon, and eggs, or even if you're just eating all meat and you're going to the restaurant or the fast food place and you're getting a burger with the bun and all of the condiments and all of the everything that they got on there with those fries fried in seed oils and a shake is not the same. It's just not the same. It's not the same thing. So you can't say that a hamburger with the bun and all that other stuff is red meat. It is not, whereas a steak alone is. And so this question is still, we're still talking about this question, but I think we're finding out by so many of us that it is not dangerous. What about your multivitamin? Do you need a multivitamin? Anybody want to chime in on this one? I stopped taking multivitamins and I take very specific supplements. But people will assume that you're going to become deficient, like you're going to get, if you don't eat, what is that one with orange juice? Scurvy. You'll get scurvy if you don't have oranges, vitamin C, right? So people will assume that you're going to become vitamin deficient when you eat only animal foods, but what we need to realize is that animal foods are very, very nutrient dense. And a lot of our issues with needing supplementation has to do with the depletion of our soil, so that even the animals are eating those plants and they're not getting the vitamins into their bodies because the soil is depleted. So, but animals provide high quality protein, B12, iron, zinc, selenium, choline, and many other essential nutrients. So, I want to be, that vitamins and plants do have vitamins. The problem with the plants is that those vitamins and minerals are not easily bioavailable to humans. We do not have the appropriate stomach mechanisms to be able to process and extract those. So it's very difficult for us to get the vitamin nutrients out of them. They may be very, very high in nutrients. It's hard for us to get it out. Sorry, it's hard for us to get it out. So, it just means that meat is far more nutritious than many people realize. I'm choked up, y'all, and I forgot to bring my water. Charlie said I quit my Flintstones vitamins. Good for you. Yes, yes. So, what about this question? Can you stay carnivore forever? Can you stay carnivore forever? Well, I'm just going to call out Maggie the rancher. I think she lives in Alberta, Canada, and has been a carnivore for over 60 years. Yeah. So I think if you can take that one example, you can say that you can probably stay carnivore as long as you like. There's lots of people in the carnivore space that have been carnivore for 10 years, 15 years. They've been carnivore for the long term. So, a lot of people do remain animal based for years. Some people just try it for 30, 60, 90 days. Some use it as an elimination diet, and then they start to incorporate things back in. And for me, I am not able to incorporate very many things back in. So that's, it's going to just be on a case by case basis. Um, but as far as the science is concerned, there's just not those long randomized trials that are out there following carnivore eaters for decades because carnivore is not a new phenomenon, but it's definitely something that is not well studied. I'll put it that way. So, I'm concerned about people who are eating a lot of ultra processed foods 3 and 4 times a day. You're eating, breakfast pastries, and you go into Starbucks to get the caramel macchiato, and you're drinking the sugar sweetened sodas and candy. Somebody's got to have a Snickers bar in the afternoon, and all those kind of things. All those highly processed foods. But yet we think that eating beef is extreme. Don't that sound crazy to y'all? That sounds crazy to me. We think eating meat is extreme, but we're willing to put all of this other toxic uh, products into our bodies. So we just become so accustomed to processed food that real food now seems to be abnormal. So, what if you decided to try it? What if you decided to try it? Over the last couple of weeks, we've been asking some pretty big questions, talking about why people are so sick. And if you're sick, you need to consider this. We talked about root causes instead of just looking at symptoms. And we talked about what science knows with confidence and what we've been honest about where the science is still growing. But we're back to our original question of today, which is, should you try it? Should you try carnivore? And my answer is going to be, I think yes, everybody should try it. I think everybody should try it as an elimination diet, especially if you have chronic disease, if you have hypertension, or you have autoimmune, or you have some other kind of medical condition, then I think you should try it. And I know that it takes a little bit of courage to actually do that. You're either brave or crazy to try it. I get that. But I definitely don't think that everybody needs to be a carnivore permanently like me. I'm finding out that I can't tolerate any of this other stuff. I can't tolerate it. I can't tolerate the seed oils. Many of the plants cause me problems, and so the dairy, even, I mean, dairy is a carnivore thing, and I can't have that either. So, come to find out that I'm just really super sensitive. And so, how are you going to find that out if you don't try? If you don't try it, you'll never find out what things are that are causing the problem, right? So going back to that 5 whys that we asked last week. So my goal is to help people become healthier, to take back the trajectory of your health into your own hands. This is something that is very, very doable. And Carnivore is a super effective tool for that. And so I definitely think that a lot of people should really try it. You might not need to stay on it. You might end up in a sort of a ketovore, or, a whole foods approach, where you're eating single ingredient foods. You're staying out of that center of the store where they have all those packages and boxes and bags and ingredient lists as long as your arm, and eating real food, right? So that's the thing, is I'm here to tell you that you have options. So you can think of it as an experiment. Um, and there's a misconception that says if you try carnivore, you have to stay committed to it for life. And that's just really not true. You see many people who do not stay carnivore. But I do like that people have it in their tool belt, so that if anything happens, they can always go back to that, right? So it allows you to simplify your life, simplify your eating, and find the foods that are causing your problem, right? And then we observe how the body responds. We've already talked about how some people get great energy, some people get, mental clarity, some people get weight loss. I mean, it's just a myriad of different benefits that you can achieve through giving this a try. So you might learn something new about your body when you eliminate those sugars and processed foods, and try carnivore for 30, 60, 90 days. All right. Let me just remind you that progress is not just about the scale. So don't make the mistake that many people make, thinking that scale, don't let her tell you who you are. Don't let her tell you who you are. We want to go ahead and let our bodies heal. Okay. Yes. So that is it for tonight. I wanted to just say, if you watched both episodes of this series, I hope that you'll remember, don't stop asking why. Keep asking why. Why are you recommending this medication? What happens if I don't take it? And don't settle for just treating symptoms, because we can really address the root cause. And nutrition is like a major game changer in that area. Work with your care team. When you see those research articles, ask the question, what kind of study is this? Remember that evidence pyramid and collect your own data. And remember that your body has this amazing capacity to respond when you change the environment. Our bodies are fearfully and wonderfully made and designed to heal themselves given the proper nutrition, which is so, so amazing to me. All right, you guys, don't forget that we are going to be having Impact Meetup and Eat Up with CarnivorousGrama and Friends September 5th, 2026, right here in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And it's going to be an amazing lineup. I'm telling y'all, it's selling out. We've got still like almost 2 months left to go, and it's almost sold out. If you have not gotten your tickets, you need to get them, because it is going to sell out. I know I keep saying that, but it's like right around the corner. All right, you guys, I will see you later this week. I'll be back on Saturday evening for CarnivorousGrama Speaks. Actually, I'm going on with Target Prime Rib on Saturday. So you guys can look for me there. And then I'll be back next week with another episode of Hey Sister Girl. So see y'all next time. Bye, everybody.